In this video, I'm going to be answering your guitar-related questions and hopefully giving you some useful answers. This is the first longer format version of this that I've done, so I'd love to hear some feedback in the comments about whether you find it useful or not. And of course, if you have your own questions, please do comment them below and I will get to them in the next video if I do it, which I hope to. If you like my teaching and you like what I have to say, check out the link in the description where you can sign up to my online guitar mentorship. You send me clips of your playing, any questions you have, and I get back to you within 24 hours, guaranteed, with a tailored response to you, showing you exactly what you need to do next to improve. Anyway, on with the questions. My C to D chord change is really slow. Any tips for speeding it up? Yeah, so C to D is a bit of a weird one because there aren't really any shared notes between these two chords. We have to lift every finger off to get from one to the other. But there is a little thing that we can talk about that might just help to make this a little easier. Let's take a C chord. The quickest way to get from your C to D is to take your first finger off, so we've just got the second and third fingers on, and if you notice, the arrangement of these two fingers, i.e. one string and one fret apart, actually remains the same in the D chord as well. If I just hop them down 1, 2, 3 strings, we've now actually got 2 of our 3 fingers down for the D chord, and that first finger just comes back in over the top like that. And now we've got the D chord. And vice versa, as you go back, first finger comes off, you hop up 3 strings, put the first finger back on, don't lift it as much as I just did, and that should help you get between these chords. Now if you can keep a bit of tension between your second and third fingers so that they don't sort of lose their structural integrity as you move between the two chords, that's great. So you see here, you can see they sort of stayed in contact like that. Then of course you just got to practice it quite a lot of times. Try and practice it fast as well, don't just do it at a comfortable speed, I do it fast. Cool, hopefully that helps. Yo, love the content, dude. Question, how do you get better at connecting your scale shapes together? I get lost when I move across the frets and just end up going back to position 1 again. Yes, this is a common theme and I have quite a useful little exercise for this. So take your pentatonic scale or your minor scale or your major scale, whatever it is you're comfortable with, and just take the first 2 strings worth of that scale. Let's take the A minor pentatonic, basic one here. I'm going to go 5-8 on the E string, 5-7 on the A string. We can take that same shape and start it 2 frets higher on the D string. We can do the same thing 3 frets higher on the B string. That is 3 frets higher from where we just were. So we started on the 5th fret on the E string. We took that 1st to 4th finger, 1st to 3rd finger shape. Then the 7th fret on the D string. And 3 frets higher to the 10th fret on the B. It's the same shape in 3 different groupings. We're now in position 3 of the minor pentatonic scale, so we could just come back down this if we want. We could even just go back the way we came. So go down position 3 as we just did. Now we're back in position 1. We could go up and down position 1. And across. So you see what I'm doing? I'm going up and down these scale positions, but I'm using this octave kind of idea to travel between shapes. Now you can do this with the first 2 notes of any pentatonic or any normal full minor or major scale position. So in position 5, we've got 3, 5, 3, 5. It's actually an easier one, I'd say. So now I'm going to go 2 frets higher, 5, 7, 5, 7 on the D and G strings. 3 frets higher than that, 8, 10, 8, 10 on the B and then the E string. So we've gone from position 5 here to position 2. That 8, 10 at the end. It's part of our shape. So we can go across the fretboard like this. Then come down the scale shape, position 2. So this requires you to know your 5 scale shapes, but it's quite a cool way of getting between them, and actually I think it sounds quite cool as well. Messed up the end, oh well. I always catch the in-between string when doing string skipping. How do I get better at not doing this? This is where I think pick slanting comes in really handy. So let's take something like this. As I sort of jump across the string going up, I'm going to angle the pick downwards. So I'm just sort of angling in the opposite direction to the way that I'm moving. I'm going to kind of angle up, downwards. Then I'm going to kind of angle it the other way. I'm going to point the pick back up towards myself as I go down across the strings. Then we end up kind of hopping over the string a little more by changing the angle as we move across. If you look up pick slanting on YouTube, you'll see some tutorials on how this works a little more neatly. So I'd recommend checking them out and working on your pick slanting as a tool for getting better string skipping. Oftentimes when it comes to string skipping, the left hand is actually doing okay. It's normally the right hand that gets lost, right? So you can just practice the right hand element of this. It's actually quite hard. There's something quite comforting about having the left hand move across the strings. When you've just got the right hand to work on, it can really expose your picking. So try just working the right hand and nothing else. Hey man, I find string muting really hard. I always get the low strings ringing out when I'm playing riffs. Any tips for fixing this? So it's a little hard to know without watching you play, but what I see when people move across the strings is they often end up turning the wrist. So they might play a scale like this, and the wrist is sort of turning to reach the strings, and then you end up with a different picking position by the time you get to the end. And as you start to turn the wrist away, you can end up kind of moving away from the strings. So if you notice, when I play a scale here, I'm just dropping the whole hand down. The wrist might move a little bit, but I'm actually almost dropping from the elbow. I'm dropping the elbow down to get to the bottom of the string. So when I pick on the high E string, my pick relative to the rest of my arm is in the same position really as it was on the low E string. I'll do that again. So you see my arm is covering the strings like that. And then I'm almost just quite lazily just letting the arm roll across the strings like that. I'm using more of the flat of the thumb and the sort of base of the palm to mute the strings. A lot of people try and use the outer edge. That outer edge is for your like chuggy stuff, but the inner edge here and the base of the palm is more what you want for muting the strings as you go over. I've been trying to rake into notes, but I always miss. This actually has a lot of crossover with what I just said. Say I hit this note, and I want to go like that, rake into it. There's a couple of things I can do. The first finger here, I'm actually touching the string above gently with the left hand. So this, although I'm technically raking across 3 strings to get to the 4th, the G string, I don't have to be quite so careful with my right hand now because the first finger's muting the one above here. Equally, say I were to hold the note with my 3rd finger, I could even use, actually maybe this first finger here, to just touch a string or 2 above the one I'm on here. So yes, ideally my right hand can just go clunk, 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 notes. But in the flow of things, it can be hard to do that perfectly, and actually a bit more safeguarding with the left hand by muting the strings above can be quite useful. And then again, the crossover is we don't want to just turn the wrist to get through the strings. We want to actually drop the arm. If I turn the wrist, I start hitting other strings. So make sure it's the arm that's dropping, not the wrist turning. I was hoping to get your opinion on something. Why do all modern metal riffs seem to sound the same? I know what I mean, but I can't put my finger on why it is that they all feel like different versions of the same thing. Yeah, this is a common theme, and a lot of people have that sort of all songs sound the same mentality with a lot of music nowadays. I think this comes down to a lot of things, but one thing I'd like to pinpoint is riff construction. I see a lot of players nowadays trying to squeeze every single technique and rhythmic idea and motif into every riff, and they're essentially painting with every single colour every single time across the entire canvas. I think to create a sort of defining riff, you actually have to restrict yourself somewhat. You have to go, okay, I'm going to use this technique, I'm going to use these frets, I'm going to use these particular 2 chords maybe. If you use every technique, every chord, and you're all across the fretboard, you're kind of just using everything without really defining what you want your riff to feel like. And so if you're writing riffs and you want yours to sound a bit more unique, I think you have to restrict yourself to a particular idea or 2 or 3 ideas, not just use everything you can. I've seen people giving the complete reverse advice to this, and I personally think it's quite bad advice, which is just, you know, use all the different strings, use all these different techniques, move across the fretboard. It's like, yeah, it sounds cool, but it's not like memorable. If you want something to really stick in your ear, I think you've got to pick a motif or an idea or some sort of technique or theme and stick with it and build on it if you can. If you want to make another version of that riff later on that's a bit more complex, then go ahead. But I think it's about restriction. I think that's how you get interesting riffs, and I think we're kind of lacking that in modern metal nowadays. I've heard a lot of people talk about ear training, but I'm not sure where to start with this. Thoughts? Really like your videos, by the way. Thank you. I think the simplest place to start is with intervals. So go to tonedear.com. I think it's a really great website. Go on the intervals quiz and just try and identify the minor second and the major second. Minor second sounds like Jaws. It's a 1 fret movement, so any 1 fret jump is is a minor second. Then a major second sounds a bit more like Happy Birthday. So those first two notes there. Again, any 2-fret jump across the fretboard now. They're all major second intervals. A lot of people get the hang of this quite quickly. I mean, those, although they feel quite similar in some ways because they're close together, they do feel quite distinctly different once you get the hang of them. So what you can do at the same time is work on the octave, identifying that sound. Essentially the same note twice, but one being the octave higher, or double the pitch. But also work on the major seventh. The major seventh kind of just feels like an octave, but not quite. So this is your octave, for example. The major seventh, it's like it wants to go up to that octave. It feels like it wants to pull up to it. An octave sounds super clean. And major seventh doesn't. So I think you can work on your minor second and your major second, but also your octave and your major seventh, and then just work inwards, almost by trial and error if you want to start to get these thirds, fourths, fifths, and sixths and sevenths. But intervals are a great place to start. Another thing you can start to do is try to play vocal melodies on your fretboard. These tend to be quite catchy, and so if you can start to find them on the fretboard, even just get a few notes right, it's a good place to start. I love the Killswitch engaged style harmonies, but I don't know how to recreate them myself. If you could show me how to do that, I'd really appreciate it, dude. Cool, so guitar harmonies, quite an effective way of sort of delivering more layered melodies. That's literally what they are. Kind of requires you to know your scale shapes a little bit. So let's assume you know them. We're playing the key of C major. A simple place to start with harmonies is a third harmony. So let's take the first 3 notes of the C major scale. We're just going to play them in order, first, second, and third note of the scale. For each one of those notes, we need to count up 2 more notes in the scale and play that note at the same time. So I'm going to play notes 1 and 3 at the same time, notes 2 and 4 at the same time, and notes 3 and 5 at the same time. Now, it sounds a little crunchy when you do it on one guitar, but if you do those 2 parts on separate guitars, you get a much cleaner kind of sound. There's some physics behind that we're not going to bother getting into right now. So instead of going, you can go, and suddenly it sounds quite cool. That's a good place to start. You can also, if you want to, go 2 notes back. I think this is quite a cool sound. So let's take those same 3 notes again. I'm going to go back 2 notes in the scale. This is going to give us a 6th. It's quite an interesting sound, so we're still hearing that as our main melody, but now we've got these lower notes sitting underneath. Sounds quite interesting. I've been playing pentatonic blues licks for a while now, but struggle to sound bluesy and just sound like I'm recreating the same licks I've been practicing for years now. Any tips on how to sound a bit more bluesy? Yeah, so I think that kind of bluesy sound comes from when you start to combine and sort of move in and out of the major and the minor pentatonic scales. Super simple cheat code for this: if we're in A minor pentatonic, or any minor pentatonic, take that same scale and just play it 3 frets lower. So this would essentially be like playing the F sharp minor pentatonic scale. This is, without getting too theory heavy, the same as playing the A major pentatonic scale. Yeah, the 2 of these scales sound slightly different. Let's put on a basic backing track and I'm just going to jump between them so you can hear the difference. Very short back and forth between the 2 ideas there, nothing too special, but hopefully you could just hear how they sounded a little different over that same A blues backing track. Another little neat trick that you can do is just take your A minor pentatonic scale and take any note outside of that scale and slide into a note that is in the scale from that. So the 8th fret B string, for example, is in the scale, 7 isn't, so I'm going to slide from 7 to 8. Brought some more in there. You can hear it has a bit of that bluesy, almost jazzy feel in some ways. That's a quick cheat code for you. Hello, quick theory question for you. What's the difference between 3/4 and 6/8 time? I feel like they're the same. These are very commonly confused and they're quite distinctly different. In simple terms, 3/4 is counted 1 and 2 and 3 and. 6 beats, but the pulse is different. We've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 6/8 places the pulse differently, and we kind of count it differently as well. We're going to emphasize beats 1 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is somewhat interchangeable in some ways with 12/8, which we might count as 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a... What we've got here is 3 notes per beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Versus 3/4, where we just had 2 notes per beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and... So the 3/4 has a more 4/4 kind of feel. It's more driving and forwards moving. 6/8 has more of that swing to it, that 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Got that kind of feel. And I'm jumping in and out of 12/8 and 6/8 a bit here, but it's just to demonstrate the point. Those are the basics behind it. Hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of understanding as to how they work. Cool, quick roundup for today. I hope that was useful. Again, if you like what you heard, I offer guitar mentorship. Just check the link in the description. Please like and subscribe, all of that business. And comment your questions and I might get back to you next time. If you have any feedback on the series, again, drop a comment. I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. See you later.